I'm Kevin Sullivan. In the summer of 1985, I was 20 years old and a student at UNC, and I was working as a reporter summer intern at the Enquirer Journal newspaper in Monroe, North Carolina. Maybe you can picture the Enquirer Journal office in the mid-1980s. There'd be a newsroom with desks with push-button phones and CRT word processor monitors on each desk, paper stacked everywhere. Next door would be the production room where we would edit the final proofs, even with an X-Acto knife to make some final changes, and then off to the printing press, which was on site right there at the office. On my very first day, the copy editor gave me an assignment. My first story: a farmer had found a three-legged turkey and he wanted us to do a story on it. So I went over there with the photographer, pretty skeptical that this was probably a prank that's played on the intern every year. But sure enough, the farmer pulled out a three-legged turkey from the batch of the others running around. We took photos and did the story. I think my lead for that story was, if your family argues over the drumstick at the Thanksgiving table, Baker Brothers Farm has the turkey for you. Early that summer, we started hearing rumors about men showing up in Anson and Union County with ponytails, looking through scopes, checking out the area, and locals renting equipment to what appeared to be a movie company, antique period piece automobiles and farm equipment, that type of thing. And so we would go out and try to talk to people and find out more about what was happening, but they were very tight-lipped and became very kind of Hollywood non-disclosure on us, which only increased our desire to find out more about what this was all about. I remember Carrie Rowell on our staff did a story about how there was a run on at the library and at bookstores for the book The Color Purple, with renewed interest in that book that was just a few years old. And so we started to put two and two together that this was going to be Steven Spielberg coming to the area to film The Color Purple. I also started calling into Moonsong Productions, Steven Spielberg's company at that time, to find out more. You just would not get any responses from the publicity department or marketing or casting, etc. And wrote a story about how the media was having trouble learning more about this movie that was coming to town. We saw flyers in town that said that a movie company was looking for people to play bit parts and also be extras in a Hollywood movie, and there would be auditions at the auction barn in Marshville. So I decided to attend the auditions and find out more and just do a story about the auditions themselves. I talked with Joe Doster, who was one of the casting team members from Moonsong Productions. She said they were especially interested in people who ride horses well and manage horses and even plow behind a mule. Lots of kind of turn of the century talents that would be needed for this movie. Later on, I got the call that I actually was selected to be an extra for the movie. On the day of the filming, we met at the Wadesboro Public Library. There were about 50 of us. We were given period piece costumes for 1909. Some folks got haircuts on the site to match the time period. We were reminded to remove any modern jewelry that could be picked up in the shot. One of the casting people there that day told me about 200 people in total in the area would be used as extras in the movie during the course of the filming. I was given a suit and a straw hat, and I carefully placed a pad of Post-it notes and a pen in my pocket as I planned on doing some reporting on the set. We all took a bus over together to Marshville, to the White Street set. When we arrived there, it had been really transformed. There was a barricade kind of holding back onlookers who were just checking out the action, including media from the area. We were taken to kind of a porch on the set that was, I believe, in front of the drugstore of the movie set. The paved road was covered with red clay and mud. I know for other scenes later on, they would even spray flour to create a snow image. But cables everywhere, lots of commotion, people moving around. Of course, other locations were the Bennett Plantation, owned by the Huntleys, in Lylesville and the railroad tracks near Ansonville. I mostly remember from that day there was a lot of waiting around. The extras all stayed together on that porch area until we were placed for a shot, but that really was after a lot of pre-production work was being done. I think they filmed about 5 scenes that day. Scenes like Desrita Jackson walking across the street toward the general store, Danny Glover pulling up in a horse-drawn carriage and picking her up. Also interior scenes with Desrita Jackson interacting inside the store. When they were finally ready to film a scene, then they would go to the extra pool and pick out people and place them around the set and give them instruction on what to do during the shot. And then when they were ready to finally begin and go ahead and film a scene, they would radio to the police to hold traffic on I-74 and ask everyone to be quiet and begin the shot. I was really zeroing in on what the actors were talking about and what Spielberg was saying. As he was setting up the scene where Desrita Jackson walks up to the store, he was telling the assistant directors how much he liked this shot. He put the camera on a track and was going to move the camera along diagonally as she approached the store. And therefore, the background would sort of fall away as she was approaching. And he said, I think you're going to like this shot. I haven't done one like this since Raiders. I was paired with a woman, and we were to walk arm in arm down the street and take a right at the first turn. We were right near Desrita Jackson at the beginning of the shot, and then we sort of faded into the background. I had my own plan. I told the girl, I think what we should do is don't take a right turn, and we should kind of veer a little bit to the left so we stay in the shot longer. We'll be right behind the lead actress. She said, I don't think we should do that. We should do what the director's saying. No, trust me, I know what I'm saying. And so we began the shot, quiet on the set, back to one, action. And the scene begins, and we start walking. We're right behind Desrita Jackson. Spielberg's following along on the camera, behind the camera on the track, and we would finish the scene. We kind of stayed in the background very closely. Cut, back to one. Spielberg would think about it. Let's do it again. We must have done 8 or 9 takes in the exact same way, with my partner and I kind of following right behind the lead actress. And finally, Steven Spielberg came out from behind the camera and said, no, it's too crowded, and I think it's these two right here, pointing at us. And so the casting person came right over, assistant director, and said, okay, wait a minute, you guys need to make a right down this street, so just please do that on the next shot. And sure enough, the very next time we did it, that take was a keeper. I wasn't the only rascal in this department. I remember there was a man and 2 women. I think it was his girlfriend and his mother that were together, and they were also placed in that scene. And they had decided on their own during the filming that they would act out like a mini argument going on in the background, and complete with like slapping each other and saying, "Get your hands off her," and things like that. And I remember thinking, that doesn't seem very 1909-y to me. But what do I know? It did make it into the scene. The next scene to be filmed was inside the general store, and there was a lot going on there that day. And so they grabbed a few extras and placed them on each side of the porch in front of the general store. We would walk in front of the window back and forth while the interior filming was going on, just to create the motion and commotion of an average day in town. And I remember we set up on that porch. They brought Steven Spielberg's director's chair and other chairs. Kathleen Kennedy, the associate director, was there. Frank Marshall, another associate director, was there. Those two later married, and Kathleen Kennedy is now the president of Lucasfilms. We were all on the porch there setting up for that next scene. It took a while, so much so that lunchtime came and we even took a longer break. I had a few minutes of free time, so I zipped over to the barricade that was holding back the onlookers, and as I approached, I saw media trucks from the big TV stations in Charlotte and Columbia, and I felt pretty good knowing that our paper was going to get a big scoop on them that day. I found Wes Miller, our photographer, who was getting some good shots of the set and of some of the actors moving around. He slipped me his camera, and I went back up toward the porch area where people were setting up for lunch, and was able to get a photo of Steven Spielberg, kind of bringing his lunch back to his chair. It was a pretty good gig to be an extra in the movie. It was paid, and the lunch was pretty fancy for that time with pasta and redfish and eggplant. So I was able to sit on the porch during that lunch and listen to the directors talking about what was coming up next, and the screenwriter was there, get his views. And most importantly, I had an opportunity to ask Steven Spielberg a few questions. The most important question I think on everybody's mind is, why did you pick Anson and Union counties for the filming when the novel itself takes place in Georgia? And he said that he just loved the light of the area, the morning light, the daylight, the evening as the sun was setting. He was particularly interested in the colors. Of course, we all know of the how the purple flowers look on the backdrop against the green in the kind of iconic moments of the movie. And he also said there was a lot more tree cover in the area, more green in the background, and he was really interested in having that versus the other locations that he scouted. I was jotting all of this stuff down on my Post-it notes and stuffing my pockets with these things. And then he went inside the general store to film the interior scenes where Celie spots her baby with the minister's wife. Well, that was my chance. Spielberg was now inside the store, and the attention was focused on the interior scene. There was his director's chair sitting there empty. And so, yes, I decided to go ahead and plunk down in Steven Spielberg's director's chair. It was only there for a few moments until I was booted by a production assistant. Also on the set that day were Alice Walker, the writer, and her daughter Rebecca. They are both executive producers for the new movie version of the musical. There were 7 weeks total of filming in Anson and Union counties, and then additional shooting was in California and in Kenya. After it was all done, I headed back to the newsroom and wrote up the story. Later that summer, I wrote a story about the financial impact of having the movie filmed in the region, which was estimated to be $4 million. I think it was a couple weeks later, word about the secrecy around the filming got back to the Southern California media and the trade press for the movie industry, and I had calls with interviews with the Hollywood Reporter and TV Guide. The LA Times called, and they were very interested in going on the movie set as an extra to find out more about what all was going on. I remember the resulting article, "Spielberg's Secrecy, No Southern Comfort," was also picked up by other papers that were in the LA Times syndicate in Austin, Texas, and Sacramento and other towns. I remember getting a letter from my grandmother who lived in Florida. "Dear Kevin, you can only imagine my surprise at opening up my morning paper and finding my grandson in the entertainment section," with a clipping from the Tampa Tribune. So very exciting for me, and probably extended my 6 seconds of fame for being an extra in the movie. My internship ended and I headed back to school. It was a few months later, in early 1986, that the movie came out. I went to see The Color Purple in the local theater with my eyes peeled, looking for me as an extra. If Steven Spielberg had only listened to me, I would have been in the shot a lot longer. But I'm pleased to say you can watch the film today and see my back if you don't blink. And I'll always remember this amazing experience being an extra in The Color Purple.